So, what's before menopause? What were you just talking about in this corner? Perimenopause. Okay, so perimenopause is the transition time when your hormones, I like to do it like this. So, as women, we're designed to have this nice undulating cycle every month, up and down, up and down. You have your period, next month you get it again, get it again. We do this up until we hit perimenopause, where your body is undergoing a change, where the ovaries are starting to get tired. And your brain has to get your ovaries to work. Have you guys heard about this kind of stuff before? Is this new to people or? Okay, yeah. So where do hormones come from? They come from glands. So your brain has to tell the gland to work, and then the gland has to respond. So your brain has to tell your thyroid gland to work, and then your thyroid has to respond. Your brain has to tell your ovaries to work, and your ovaries have to respond and make hormone. Same with men and their testicles. Their testes have to make all the good stuff, the sperm, the testosterone, but it's the same with your adrenal glands and how they make cortisol. So whenever we're thinking about the function of the gland, there's always something higher up in here that's telling it what to do, or at least trying to tell it what to do, because the gland has its own opinion about what to do. Okay. So your brain tells your ovaries to work with several signals, and when you start getting into this 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, depending on, how long your perimenopause transition is, which is anywhere from 1 to 8 years. Sometimes it's 10, depending on who you talk to or what your experience has been. So if it's been 10, I'm so sorry.
Over 10.
Oh gosh, yeah. So you needed some help during that time. But this is right. That's a perfect segue.
So
Yes,
that
the
means
wine.
that for 1 to 10 years, she's been having sometimes the cycles coming, sometimes it's not, correct?
Yeah, because what happens with the ovaries is that when we're having a nice menstrual cycle for our fertile years, your ovaries and your brain are talking. They're talking, they're talking, they're talking. They're responding each month to, get the egg ready, release the egg. Get the egg ready, release the egg, which is ovulation, right? So, and that's what gives us our menstrual cycle. Is ovulation is that one piece of it. But your brain tells your ovaries what to do in terms of ovulating and bleeding. So, yeah.
Are you saying that your brain can tell your thyroid or your ovaries to keep working even when they were not born to?
Yeah.
Really?
The brain is always going to have an opinion about what your glands do. But there's a natural physiological process with perimenopause where the ovaries stop responding to the brain signal. So we're going on and on and on, and then whenever we hit that 40 to 45, that's when the ovaries are like, I'm a little tired. So maybe you'll have a cycle 1 month because the ovaries will respond. And you have 2 ovaries, or most of us have 2 ovaries, and they each have different moods. So sometimes it will respond, and sometimes it won't. And some ovaries are much more balanced than the other ovary. I call them like one ovary can be moody and one ovary can be calm. So sometimes you have a really nice, easy cycle. Sometimes you have a really heavy cycle that's really crampy. It has to do with how the ovary responds to those brain signals and just the mood that the ovary's in. Everybody has kind of a tendency of how different ovaries function. But your brain's going to tell your ovaries, cycle, cycle, cycle. You get to the 40 to 45, and then your ovaries are like, I'm tired, and then they start to shut down. So sometimes they'll work for you, sometimes they won't. So this perimenopause time frame is where I would say most women come into me and they're thinking about the menopause transition when their period stops, but they're in perimenopause, so they're having brain fog and hot flashes and vaginal dryness, maybe pain with sex. They're forgetting things, their skin is changing, their joints feel kind of either painful or tight. Frozen shoulder is really common during this time. Lots of different things. But it's because the ovaries are starting to ignore the brain signal. Okay? And then, yeah.
How does birth control play into this?
Perfect. So let's draw a little visual. That's the brain. gonna get a medal for this, right? It's beautiful. Ovary 1, ovary 2, right? Uterus, okay? So the brain says signals down to these ovaries, FSH and LH. FSH is get the egg ready, egg prep, and LH is release egg. And all your life, your ovaries are gonna respond. And then in perimenopause, they're gonna be like, I'm tired, I've been working for you my whole life, Mr. Brain, I'm kind of done. So they'll start to get irregular. What happens, what the brain does, is the brain will start sending more of a signal. It will start poking the ovary even more and saying like, yo, wake up, please respond to me. I want you to bleed and have estrogen and make hormones. And eventually your ovaries just say, thanks, but I'm done. And that's when you stop having your periods. But in perimenopause, it's kind of this on and off type of thing. Does that make sense? Does that concept make sense? So that's why your symptoms are all over the place. And this is where the weight starts to creep up. So we'll segue into that. But birth control, why birth control works is because we're putting a very steady, small amount. Jenny's nodding her head. We talk about this a lot. We're putting a very steady, small amount of a synthetic hormone. A synthetic hormone is more harsh on our system, harder to detox, and harder for your body to use. But what it does is it essentially chops off your brain signals. And your brain doesn't talk to your ovaries very well because it's putting in a steady state. So your body sees, I got hormone, I got hormone, I got hormone. So your ovaries, they don't talk to the brain at all. Which is honestly great because if you don't want to get pregnant, you can turn off your ovulation that way. But what's not great about birth control is the fact that it suppresses our own natural hormones, which are actually what we want. So instead of birth control, I'll just kind of do a little segue, but instead of birth control, I try to get people to learn how to chart their cycles and track their cycles. I try to recommend other things that can be better. Some IUDs are better. Sometimes I try to have people go the non-hormonal route if we can, because our strength in women with having our hormones balanced is having an ovulatory cycle for as long as we can until peri goes a little bit crazy, and then we kind of have to pivot a little bit. And then in menopause, all of our hormones kind of go down. So we're cycling. Then perimenopause, it's kind of going all like this, but it's on a steady trend down. And then menopause, you're down here. And it's more like a flat line. So that 1 to 8 year period where you're going all the way kind of down, your body is getting used to a different level of hormones. When you have a cycle, your hormones are, your estrogen's like, 75 to 220. And then in menopause, the average is like 30, 20, 10, 40, something like that. So that's another reason why there's so many symptoms in this time frame. But your body has to figure out a new normal. And because you don't have so much estrogen and progesterone, that changes how your metabolism works. How are we doing? Does that make sense? So that's kind of like hormone 101 done really quick. Okay? I am going to pass this little like info chart around just because it kind of contrasts the effect of estrogen and progesterone. So we get to see like one of the things that I see in this perimenopausal time frame and women that are in menopause is that you typically gain 5 to 10 to 15 pounds just naturally because of the hormonal shift. And a lot of that is due to the fact that when we're not ovulating anymore, what hormone are we lacking? Close. What's the other one? Progesterone. Because how do we make progesterone? We make progesterone if we ovulate or if we get pregnant. Otherwise, progesterone's pretty much flatline. It's not around that much. It's your estrogen that has most of the fluctuations. So if we have a lot of estrogen in the system that's not balanced out by your natural, awesome, calming, very grounding, natural diuretic, natural fat burn progesterone, then your estrogen is going to be totally unopposed and it's gonna have all of its effects, which is, to have more fatty tissue develop in like your stomach and your hips and your butt. So that is one of the things where we have to expect that you're gonna gain 5 to 15 pounds, and we have to be smart in this perimenopausal time frame. Okay, so let's see, what else? The other thing that we didn't talk about in the hormone realm is that you have changes in estrogen and progesterone. You also have natural changes in testosterone as we age too. As women, we actually really need testosterone. It's really important for our drive, things like our libido, our sex drive, motivation, keeping our muscles and our bones happy and healthy, even for some like mental clarity as well, or like ability to complete hard workouts, lifting weights, and not always, but sometimes people have changes in their testosterone levels too. So as their hormones are shifting, they're getting more and more tired, but they might not realize it. They're not holding on to as much muscle mass as they would before, because the testosterone is lower, and so it's not supporting just basically muscle mass. So sometimes we have to think about testosterone too, because what is super important for your metabolism? You guys were talking about it earlier. Calories, exercise, your muscles, what your muscles are doing. Because your muscles are super metabolically active. They have positive effects on your blood sugar and your hormones. So let's talk about that. So we have to get smart when this happens, because the natural hormonal shifts are going to make us gain weight. Okay. So I'm going to make a little list here. So what are some things that I like to do with people? Can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So number one, let's talk about intermittent fasting. I'm hearing some mm-hms. What do you guys know about intermittent fasting? Anything?
There's a window to eat and a window to
12
not
hours.
eat.
Yeah, perfect. You have a window to eat, window to not. Some people it's a specific time frame, like 12 hours. Some people do a wider time frame. Okay, so intermittent fasting, fancy term for decreasing your eating window. Okay? And I like it because it naturally incorporates fasting into the diet, which is actually really beneficial. Because one of the hormones that we have to think about when it comes to your metabolism is insulin. Because what does insulin do? Yeah, it regulates your blood sugar. Insulin is literally the hormone that your body makes when it sees glucose, and we need to take the glucose up into our cells. So if insulin doesn't open the door, the glucose stays in your bloodstream. And we don't want our glucose levels to just climb and climb and climb and climb, because that has negative effects on our blood vessels, on just our feelings of hunger, fullness, and getting hangry, and having ups and downs with our blood sugar. It leads to diabetes. It's not good for our muscles, our brain health, all those things. But insulin, if the diet is not optimal, and we'll talk about diet in a little bit, if we're eating lots of high carb, high sugar, even sometimes really good foods, like grains and beans and fruits, if we're eating too much of those without adequate protein or fat, then we're going to be having lots of carbs all the time, very consistently, and your body's going to put out a lot of insulin to help the breakdown of those complex carbohydrates, which is glucose. And then your insulin levels are going to climb very gradually. And then we're having higher fasting insulin levels. And what happens when that happens is that our cells become resistant to the insulin. Have you guys all heard about this?
Your cells become resistant to it.
To the insulin.
So it can't pull the blood sugar, it can't bring the
Exactly.
blood sugar down, yeah.
So if your cells aren't listening to the insulin signal, they will not dock on the cell and open the door for you to use your glucose. So you actually can feel tired and heavy and really low energy and really suboptimal. Especially think about when you guys have like a really high carb meal You know how you like feel really good for like the first 10 minutes, and then 30 minutes to an hour later, you're like, oh, I'm so tired. Sometimes it's just because you're insulin resistant, and that high blood sugar is getting to you. You can't utilize it. So you're using, as your insulin is climbing, you're using a little bit of fuel until it gets too high, and then your body's like, there's too much, and your cells are like, too much, I'm shutting down, I'm not gonna listen to you. And then all that blood sugar stays in there. And then you feel really tired. So intermittent fasting is fantastic to make sure that we stay responsive to our insulin levels. Okay, so if you've never had your insulin levels checked by a doctor, I highly recommend it. A fasting insulin. Fasting means no food for at least 8 hours, but water's okay. So check a fasting insulin level. And you want it to be less than 10. And this is on American labs. Most labs have the same range in America. So intermittent fasting helps us keep insulin at a healthy level. And the older that we get, the more insulin resistant we tend to be. So that's why as you get older, you hear a lot more about the intermittent fasting thing. You know, I'm sure you guys all have a friend who's done it or you've tried it yourself. But it is really, really effective for helping with this interplay with insulin and making sure that we don't have high insulin and then high blood sugar and then we start gaining weight because of our high sugars. Okay.
What's the window that you recommend for doing intermittent fasting, like eating
Great
at
question.
11 o'clock in the morning, or
Yeah.
what time?
So intermittent fasting is a restricted eating window. So you can apply that really however. Some people do a 12 and 12 because 24 hours in a day. So that's kind of what we use. Some people are 16-8. Some people, I'm not super great on math on the fly, so if I mess up, I apologize, but like a 14, 10, thank you.
So 14 hours you are allowing yourself
To
to
not
not
eat.
eat, and then within 10 hours. And what do you think about
Yeah.
doing it multiple times during
Mhm.
the day?
So, well, you can only have the window for that 24-hour period. Do you mean in a week?
So I'm saying within that 10-hour period, let's say you fasted for 3 of it, and then
Right.
you didn't for 2, and then you fasted again for another 3.
Right. Yeah, so
Use
there's
it that way.
naturally going to be some, I'm not eating
Variations, yeah.
because, you know, I'm in between meals. But when we say the eating window, we're taking that into account.
Okay.
Because, there's really no right or wrong answer to this. I generally, it depends on the person. Some people that I work with, they're super savvy with their diet, so we, just start somewhere like a 14-10. Some people, they're all over the place, so I just get them to like not eat anything for 12 hours while they're sleeping, pretty much. Or like no midnight snacks. But one of the most common ones that I see is a 16-8. But we have to be cognizant whenever we're changing our diet, especially as women, that we're checking in with certain metrics that will allow us to decide whether this approach is working for us or not. So, yeah.
I'm confused when you say 16-8. Like I usually once a day,
Okay.
like at say 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then I'll have some coffee in the morning, but then I don't eat until, so
Okay.
that's 12, right? What's 16-8?
Yeah. So 16 would be the hours that you're fasting. 8 would be the hours that you have available to eat.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
Like you don't eat anything for 16 hours straight,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
just in that 8-hour window.
okay.
Yeah. Water, sometimes people will do like a bulletproof coffee in the morning or something that's high fat, so they're not breaking their fasting window with anything that's going to have an insulin response. Because the idea with intermittent fasting is getting our insulin sensitivity to go up. So we're listening to the insulin signals. We're not blowing through it and causing a lot of fat gain. This makes sense. The metrics that I always, because we'll talk about diet next. Because there's a million different diets out there, right? We've tried them all. There's lots of different metrics that I like people to think about when they're changing their diet from whatever they were doing to a new diet, because you have to make sure that the diet's working for you, and like, how do we assess that? Because you can go on how you feel yesterday, but today's a totally different day, and your physiology is going to shift just a little bit because we're not static human beings, right? Every day's a little bit different. Some days we'll need to eat more, some days we'll be comfortable eating less. So these are the metrics that I think about. Number one, so I follow this doctor who does a lot of work on weight loss stuff. He coined this term, keeping your heck in check.
Dr. Tita.
Dr. Tita. I've talked to you about him before, I'm sure. But I love this idea because heck is hunger, energy, cravings, and then he also put something in about sleep too. So some people, when they start a new diet, whatever it is, whether it's keto, vegetarian, vegan, paleo, what have you, they start noticing that their energy after, maybe the initial few days or a week is dropping. That's not a good sign for your metabolism. Or they're noticing that they're way more hungry than they should be. That's going mean that you are not getting either the right balance of macronutrients, which is fat, carbs, and protein, or you're not getting the right micronutrients, which is all of our vitamins and minerals. And we get hungry for a couple reasons. We either need fuel or we need nutrition. That's literally why we eat. We either need to make ATP at the cellular level so we can have energy and function as humans, or we need to have nutrition. We need protein, we need fat, we need carbs, we need vitamins. So if you're on a new diet, there's usually like a kind of like detoxy phase where you feel really good for a couple of days. But if you're consistently, week 2, 3, feeling really low energy, that's a sign that, you might need to tweak something. Sometimes it can be a small thing, sometimes it can be a little thing. Like some people that intermittent fast, we will pick an eating window and they're like, oh, I felt great. Awesome, keep going. But then month 3, it's not working for them anymore. They're getting a little bit too hungry. So we increase their eating window or we add in another stack. So diet is a template that we change over time as your needs change. Okay, so if anyone is ever saying to you, do keto, it will solve everything, you'll lose a ton of weight, do keto forever, or vegan, or whatever it is, they don't really understand the physiology of the body and how your metabolism is going to shift. Okay, so check in with your hunger, check in with your energy, check in with your cravings. Did your carb cravings go through the roof? Are you craving tons of protein? Are you craving fat? Sometimes what happens to me is like, I'll be thinking, I just want all the cheese, or like macaroni, or what happened to me the other day? It was really weird. And I had to check in with myself and say, oh, I'm not actually hungry for dairy, because I don't eat dairy, but what is dairy? Dairy is a lot of fat, but also a lot of like fat soluble nutrients. So it made me think, oh, okay, I need nutrients, but I also need some fat. So what's a good example of that? Avocado. Coconut oil. So I smashed an avocado and felt instantly better. So we can kind of tune into those biochemical signals, but you have to trust them. And sometimes we have to do a lot of like background work on your metabolism so that you can learn to trust those. Okay. And then sleep. If your sleep is getting affected by what you're doing, I see this a lot when women drop their carbs, because low carb is super common, but then our sleep sometimes goes down because we need those carbs to create the serotonin and the melatonin so we can fall asleep and maintain our progesterone levels, which help keep us calm and blissed out. That's what progesterone does. So sometimes we initiate intermittent fasting and then the sleep goes away. Then we think, oh, okay, well, maybe that smoothie that you're having for breakfast that has a whole banana in it, maybe let's swap your breakfast and dinner. Have that protein and veggies in the morning and then put your smoothie at night. So we're getting a little bit of carbs before bed to help maintain your sleep. Okay. So
What if you're craving sugar?
yes.
What are you missing?
So sometimes sugar cravings is your body figuring out a new normal of like, we're taking some of these carbs away that we've just been keeping your glucose and your insulin way too high, and now we're coming down to normal baseline. Sometimes it's a sign like in people that are really athletic and train a lot, if you're getting a lot of sugar cravings, you're probably just not eating enough complex carbohydrates for carbs to really sustain that high energy level. I see that in athletes and like young women who are fairly fit, that like they're kind of noticing their energy and their cravings are kind of weird. I will increase their carbs or carb cycle them, like say, you know, make sure you have a thing of ice cream on the weekend with your family, with your kids, like don't skip that, enjoy it. Or put in some black bean pasta Wednesday night, and then Sunday night have the ice cream, so that we're cycling the carbs in. We're not keeping in like, you know, you at like 50 to 100 grams of carbs or 150 grams of carbs a day. We're just kind of putting it here and there so that we're, you know, giving them the benefit of the carbs without like, you know, bombarding their body with it all the time. But sometimes sugar cravings can be a sign of a gut imbalance. I see really strong sugar cravings be some sort of dysbiosis, whether it's you have an imbalance of good and bad bacteria, which can just be your normal flora imbalance of that. You can have candida. You can have opportunistic infections that are just kind of running around in there, and they take the opportunity to overgrow if you've been feeding them lots of sugar, lots of carbs. So looking at gut health is super important. And I do that for almost everybody. If you guys have never had a stool test and you have any symptoms of anything, get a stool test. They just tell you so much about your body. So, you know, if I have a woman of any age who just is like, my sugar cravings are through the roof, I have brain fog, maybe I have some acne, maybe my energy is really reliant on meals, I'm hangry. Do you guys know what I mean when I say hangry? Like, feed me now. I once had this always stood out to me. In medical school, I had this one woman, she had such strong sugar cravings. She was like, I was walking by, she was like in her 40s, 50s, I was walking by a mom who had a stroller, and the kid was sucking a lollipop. And she's like, I just wanted to grab that lollipop out of his hand and eat it. And I was like, oh, okay, so we gotta address this. So I put her on some probiotics, and I think we did a stool test and stuff like that. So yeah, sometimes it's a gut problem, and we find it and figure it out. So check in on your metrics for your food. But when we're in this 40 plus metabolism, the weight is coming on because your hormones are shifting. One of the biggest things that I tell people is you're in this new stage of life. So how you ate in your 20s and your 30s, you can't do anymore. You have to think more about calories. You have to think more about portions. And intermittent fasting can kind of naturally help us with that too. Because, you know, say you didn't eat a big breakfast, maybe you can have like a couple bites of the chocolate cake that you were looking forward to at dinner, different things like that. So I try to allow people to eat as much as they possibly can, but women in this time frame, you have to be more strict than you ever have been. Especially, I mean, ask your mom or your aunts and see how much weight did they gain in menopause. Because what tends to happen is you naturally gain weight because of the hormonal shifts like we talked about, and then you hit menopause, and then your body kind of gets back to normal because your hormones are going like this now. And then that's when you can really lose some weight once everything's become stable. But the perimenopausal time frame is when you can kind of prevent that weight loss or that weight gain from happening in general. Does that make sense? So this is kind of an important time frame. But yeah, you can't eat what you used to. You gotta portion size and think about calorie counts. But I'm gonna talk about keto, paleo a little bit. If you know me at all, I'm a big fan of the paleo diet because it's a nutrient-dense diet and takes away a lot of the quote-unquote offensive foods that affect the majority of people. That being said, it doesn't work for everybody, just like every diet template doesn't work for everybody. But that's usually where I will start with people, because paleo does a couple things. It gives us a better relationship with insulin naturally, because we're taking away lots of gluten, lots of grains, lots of complex carbohydrates, or processed, I should say, and we're really putting in a ton of nutrients. And most of us are really nutrient deficient, especially if you have had any babies in your life, let alone multiple babies, or like more than 2. Like, your baby took all the energy from you, all of those nutrients, and it takes a little bit of time to get those nutrients back. And some women, because they have kids and they proceed directly into mom life, they're not really getting that adequate repletion. And so by the time we get into perimenopause, which is the time frame for most women when the kids are getting older, going off to school, relationship dynamics are changing at home, more travel, maybe work changes, or we're beginning work again or stopping work again, there's more stressors. That's, that's a lot, all those things I listed, but life is what's hitting you around that time frame. So when you're stressed, your body uses up a lot more nutrients than you used to. So I start with the paleo diet with a lot of people because it really just increases nutrition with decreasing the inflammatory foods. And we look at this, and we look at food allergy tests and other testing that we do to really determine if that's a good fit for people. And also, if you are overweight, this is for people that are 30, 40 pounds overweight, but if you have like a larger fat mass than you should, it's going to change your hunger signals, and it's going to make you more inflamed overall, and we kind of have to get on top of your hunger fullness cues too, because the fat mass is going to shift that. So sometimes, like someone was asking, like, how can you listen to your hunger? How do you really know with the heck? It's sometimes we have to really take away things that are going to drive some of these hormones, like insulin, and that's why we'll do something like keto or paleo for a period of time to get the body to calm down with its reactivity. And then that's when you can say, like, oh yeah, my sugar craving is because like I ran 5 miles yesterday morning, and then I had a busy day and I didn't really refuel on my carbs. So that's why I wake up this morning and I just want to eat those brownies that I ate, that I made the day before.
Or could it be just because homework time really sucks and chocolate sounds amazing?
Right, true. And then sometimes, yeah, totally. I mean, like, I'm a big chocolate fan. Most of my people
Had some
know that.
chocolate covered raisins right after
Chocolate-covered
homework time.
raisins, yeah. I try to have
Like, there's some
people,
raisins in there. It's your treat.
yeah. I try to have people do like, high quality dark chocolate when they're doing it, lower sugar, and then if it's like a chocolate covered cranberry or raisin or blueberry, watching the sugar content overall. So, but
Mint Girl Scout cookies.
so many things in my
That's
head.
in my house
Yeah.
right now.
But yeah, so
Do you still have some in our garage if you want more?
So we have to buckle down on diet. We have to think about our ratios of things, nutrition, but we have to be consistent too. What I see a lot of times is people will be really consistent with maybe decreasing their eating out, watching their carbs, getting in good nutrition. They'll do it for about 3 weeks. They're like, oh, Dr. Nick, I feel great. I lost 5, 10 pounds or whatever. And I'm like, great, keep it up. And then they feel so good, they don't keep doing it. But in this perimenopause, menopausal time frame, you have to be way more consistent. Way more consistent for things to keep up. What else do I want to say about this? Kind of looking at the clock here. Yeah.
What about taking vitamins? How does that?
Vitamins. I love vitamins. I think they're excellent. I think sometimes they are overused. I wish that everybody would go to a naturopathic doctor and figure out what vitamin they need, because there's lots of stuff out there, and some of it, you guys, is honestly really crappy. Like, I see what people bring in to see me, and I'm like, I know you spent money on this, but like, please just throw this into the trash, which is like, ooh. So save money, go to a naturopathic doctor, have them evaluate you, put you on some good stuff. You'll spend less money overall, but supplements are good. I run blood work on people, hormone testing, sometimes like nutrition testing, nutrient testing to see what people need. But I can also really tell like what you tend to be lacking in with just like sitting down with you for an hour and looking at your history. But I have most people on things like a B complex, because that really supports our nervous system and our hormones. Because when, I always like to say, we live in this crazy modern lifestyle where we're just running around all the time, having so many different rules that we need to fill, and life is way more busy than it ever used to be. And our bodies aren't necessarily going to adapt to that. We still are designed to be in a slower way of life. But when we're going, our nervous system is continually activated, puts out more cortisol, that can lead to more weight gain. So we have to think about things of like, how do we balance the nervous system? So come to the nice sound, what's it called?
Sound meditation.
Sound meditation. So sound meditation, yoga, walking on the beach, doing things that are going to get us into that relaxation state helps get our nervous system out of the go-to-go mode, which is super nutrient depleting. So I have a lot of people on like adrenal support and B vitamins and magnesium because of that. So if you're not taking any sort of methylated B vitamins or magnesium, probably should try it. It might change your life. It might help your sleep and your hormones and your digestion and everything. So yeah, supplements are good. I want to talk about exercise kind of as the last thing, and then we'll officially wrap up, and then we can keep talking if you guys want to. Okay, diet we talked about. Exercise has to change too in this time frame. What I see with a lot of women is it's really popular to do the whole running thing, long hikes, high intensity interval training, in your young years, your 20s to 30s, because you got plenty of energy, you don't want to burn it off, maybe you don't have a familial responsibility, you don't have kids, and it's fun. Going on a long run is sometimes fun, depending on who you are. I'm sure some of you guys are like, what is she talking about? But cardio is a big thing in the 20s to 30s years, because I think we've all been conditioned to, run more, you'll lose weight, you'll lose that butt that you were complaining about, blah, blah, blah. But cardio actually gets to the point where it becomes too much for the system. It overwhelms our nervous system, and it can be very depleting for a lot of us, especially as we're going through lots of transitions in all of these different stages. So we have to switch the focus away from cardio to way more weight-based training. So my favorite thing that I tell everybody about, and I'm kind of on like a kick about this, because I read this book and it just helped solidify this in my mind, but you have to weight train. If you are really 35 and above, or 15 and above, but 40 and above, if you're not weight training, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. And when I say weight training, I mean like lifting heavy things and putting them down. So what I recommend to everybody is find a trainer or a buddy that knows what they're doing, and go to the gym and learn how to do the 3 core lifts, which is the squat, the deadlift, the bench press. Do you add anything else in there?
Well, we have a women's over 40 fitness class on Thursdays here tomorrow morning, and it's like a perfect circuit workout for different levels, because we tailor it to what you need. Betsy knows, and Carrie knows.
What time?
9 o'clock on Thursdays, but it's all about lifting weights and how you can do it safely and effectively, no matter how old you are. We have somebody that's 77 that comes to the class.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But we lift weights because we need muscles. The more muscle that you have when you're 80 is directly correlated to your longevity. So let's paint it like this. Your muscles are, if you don't use it, you will lose it. And when your hormones change, it's harder to keep them around in general. Because if your testosterone is kind of on a gradual decline, your estrogen and progesterone also support your muscles over time. So as we age, the testosterone goes down, and we tend to get more sedentary, and we start to lose our muscle mass, because your muscles are really easily catabolized, which means like eaten up by your body, because they're like a rich source of amino acids. And your body loves amino acids. It uses them super easily to make glucose, which if you're not fueling well, or if you have insulin issues, it's like, ooh, let's just grab the muscles and use the protein as an easy fuel source. So we have to move from catabolic or eating up activity to more, things that are gonna build your muscles. And Dawn's like, yeah, Bridget, anabolic, right? That's the term.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Kettlebells.
Kettlebells.
Doing kettlebells.
Oh, I love kettlebells. I'm so happy to see that you have so many. Anyways, but we have to progressively overload our muscles, because when you do that, you give little micro tears in the muscle, which leads to hypertrophy. Your muscles get bigger. You actually make more mitochondria when you stimulate your muscles. Your muscles pull on all your tendons and your bones, so you keep up your bone health too. So there's more to weight training than just, it's gonna help you not be fat, and it's gonna help your metabolism. It's gonna help everything. So if you wanna be a healthy 85, 90, 100-year-old, you have to lift weights. So work with someone like Dr. Dawn, find a trainer. When you're new to an exercise program, obviously go see someone that can teach you the form and, put you on some sort of program. Some of us are more like athletically inclined than, other people. Like I can go to the gym and be like, yeah, give me a squat, I'll do it. But a lot of people are like, no, hold my hand and I need a buddy. And so like get your buddy system going and go to the gym. It can be fun, I promise it's not scary. But kettlebells are actually a great way for people to kind of start too, because you can start at all different sizes and work your way up. It's also like really fun to see, like, oh, I lifted that one this week and now it's this big. And then, 3 months later, it's this big. Whoa. So I can't say enough about getting your muscles active and growing too. One thing that I see women tend to focus on is the fact that, and Southern California is kind of has an issue with this, is we all think that skinny is healthy. Skinny is not healthy. We don't want to be skinny fat. Have you guys all heard that term? We want to have muscles under our tissue here that you can see. And what tends to happen as we age is we naturally kind of use up our muscle mass, especially if we're not using it. So we look smaller than maybe we were, but we don't have the muscle mass that we used to. And that's not good for your hormones, your weight, longevity, your bones, everything. So we have to be putting weight-bearing exercises in there. Walking and hiking and all that stuff is good, but you need to have days where you focus on, say, leg day, and you just focus on your legs. The next day it's back, the next day it's chest. You kind of circle through it, and a lot of people would do like a circuit where it does all different exercises focusing on that one type of muscle area. Because the old circuits where you're just like doing your big toe and then your butt and then your arm, like we have to keep it in the same muscle group if we really want to get that muscle growth. Does that make sense? Okay. So don't do that like traditional thing at the gym where you go from one machine to the next. Start with your back and then your butt and then your legs and then you go up to the abs and then your arms. Don't do that. Okay. So we have to shift away from cardio. We have to. So break up with cardio. And sometimes to like keep our muscle around too as we age, we need to do more support nutrition wise. So we need to eat protein after workouts, whether that's like a beef, chicken type of animal protein, or whether we're doing like a whey protein shake after, or a veggie protein shake. I often have people do like a branched chain amino acid mix, which those are amino acids which help make protein that specifically go into your muscles and help build them up so that they grow.
They're really good in chocolate milk.
Yeah. Yeah, I have like a fruity one that I use that's actually pretty good. But yeah, they can taste a little gnarly. Sometimes people take them in pills, but but they can really help keep our
chain amino acid.
branch chain amino acids.
Okay.
But if you have questions about where to get them, like definitely ask, one of us, because I'm sure that we're all in that realm. But there's some really crappy, formulas in there. Whenever you're buying a powder, don't read just the label, read the under the box label where it's like sucralose and blue 42 and all parabens, whatever they put in there. So read all of that, because that's where, you know, if you're getting all those toxins in too, that's gonna help your body not lose weight as well, which is opposite of what we want. Okay, does that make sense? And then the other thing that I will say about the hormones, kind of circling back, is that sometimes when we get to this age, you know, 40 plus, menopausal, sometimes we just need a little bit of hormone support too. So I do work with women to give them hormones, like bioidentical hormones, because sometimes we just need a little bit of support. If you're really symptomatic with transitioning and you have hot flashes and things like that, you know, there's nothing wrong with putting in a little bit of hormone into the system to help get you through that, help you not feel like a crazy person, and eventually get people off of it, but it can be life-changing for people. Yeah.
Wasn't there, I've never done the hormone thing,
Yeah.
well, I've never been tested, but,
Uh-huh.
wasn't there a big scare about taking
Yeah.
hormones?
There was, because they were giving people conjugated equine estrogens.
There were what?
Exactly, what? I always say it like that to get that response, because that's what they were giving women. They were giving women synthetic horse urine estrogen, which, like, guys, is that natural, or does that sound like a good idea? Like, I mean, kind of cool when you think about how science works, like, oh, we can get estrogen from horse pee, but like, no, it's not good. And it was, when they were developing these products, it was the wild, wild west, like a lot of medicine is. We're learning, like even gut health, you guys, I could talk all night on gut health and still only like scratch the surface. And I tell this to my patients all the time, I'm like, we know about stool testing and we know about all of this and symptoms and blah, 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 but like, we're gonna laugh at what we talked about, you know, in 10 years. It's just, even what I knew when I was a patient of my naturopath at age 12 is like totally different than what I know now, you know? So, yeah, they had some really gross types of estrogen out there that were not bioidentical. When we're using bioidentical hormones in the proper way with testing and supervision, they are very safe. There's only a certain subset of people, maybe when they've had like estrogen or hormone related cancers, that we have to be careful, but even we're finding some of the bioidenticals are okay for those people. I'm not an expert in the cancer realm, so I won't answer any questions about that, but I just want to impress upon you guys that sometimes our hormones are changing, and we can do a lot of lifestyle changes in diet and herbs and supplements and different things to help get them up, but sometimes it's not enough, and we want you to have like a high functioning, awesome life. So if we need to give you hormones for a couple of years, like just get some hormones for a couple of years. We'll monitor you, we'll do the testing, and it's really not that big of a deal. And some people need to be on them for a couple months. Some people it's a year, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really just kind of depends. But you have to do testing, and you have to, what did it do? You have to go to someone, share it to story. I'm pressing the right button. You guys are all gonna witness this. I screwed this up earlier this week. Share the story. Oh, okay, it's up there if you want to see it later. And Dawn, you're probably gonna post it somewhere too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. On
Um,
Instagram?
On Instagram, yeah. But what was I saying? You gotta get the testing, and you have to, you know, it's best to go to someone who really does hormones all the time. I would say like naturopathic doctors and some functional medicine doctors and some acupuncturists are pretty good at it. But, you know, if you really want to get results, go to someone that really knows what they're doing. It's just kind of like, you know, when you need knee surgery, go to a knee surgeon. You know, go to your primary care doctor. So, you know, just ask whoever you're going to, what do you do, what do you run, how many people do you see with this, what's your experience, and you'll get an idea. Yeah.
Can I just say I'm a patient of Dr. Meg's, and she has helped me tremendously. So if any of you need a good, she's amazing. She's helped my hormones. We're in work in progress, and my gut, but she's fantastic. So I just want to say that.
Yeah. We didn't really talk about my background at all. We probably should have.
But can I just say this real quick? Am I allowed?
Yeah.
Just like to have a guide help you. Like, you know, I'm a pretty healthy person. I'm pretty with my nutrition. There I go with my brain fog, right?
Right.
But to just have someone just to be so knowledgeable and guide you and be like, oh, it's not all in my head, or you know, like just give you the right tools without you having to figure it out and go to doctor to doctor and doctor to doctor, because that seems what happens sometimes. Just to have someone that guides you that really knows what they're doing is just a blessing. So I just have to share that. She's amazing. But yeah.
Can you put your phone number on the board?
I have cards if you need me.
Paper on the bottom.
She's in
meant to
on the
be this
paper.
too.
It's on the bottom of your paper. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want like an official cute one,
They are cute.
I signed them myself.
Well done.
I'm a little excited.
Dr. Meg and also
Yeah.
Dr. Tita.
Yes and no.
Dr. Tita has a great, the HEC guy has a great workout program for people and for women, and it's only 15 minutes 3 times a week.
Oh, cool.
But it's
Yeah.
like efficient strength training, fat burning exercises, and he has one specifically, I think, for women too.
Yeah.
And I just think for people who don't have a lot of time to fit it all in, it's
Yeah.
such a great, it's called metabolic